The sun had barely crept over the Miami skyline when a private terminal buzzed with quiet efficiency. A gleaming silver jet, polished like glass, sat waiting at the far end of the tarmac. The crew moved briskly, prepping for a high-priority flight to Manhattan Executive Airfield. No cameras, no limousines, just silence and routine. Then she arrived. No entourage, no dramatic entrance, just a tall black woman in her early 40s, wearing worn jeans, a navy windbreaker, and clean white sneakers, a single backpack slung over one shoulder. Her hair was pulled into a neat bun, edges smooth, expression unreadable. She didn't look around. She didn't need to. She walked past the glass doors like she'd done it 100 times. Inside the jet, lead flight attendant Ray watched from the galley window. Her eyes narrowed slightly as the woman approached. She turned to the junior crew member, Bo, standing near the beverage cart. "Did we clear an early boarder?" Ray asked. Bo glanced at the manifest. "Looks like a solo VIP. Name's Vera. Knox," Ray frowned. "That's her. No security, no luggage. Looks like she's here to deliver something, not board." The cabin door opened with a quiet hiss. Vera stepped in without hesitation. Ray immediately moved forward, blocking her path down the aisle. "I'm sorry. This aircraft is under restricted access," Ray said firmly, her tone professional but edged with suspicion. Vera didn't stop walking. "I'm aware." Ray held up a hand. "Then you must know passengers board once we've confirmed identity. May I see your credentials?" Vera paused, meeting Ray's gaze without flinching. "I'm listed. Top of the manifest." Ray smirked slightly. "That's interesting. I just reviewed the list and didn't see any names without corporate tags or guest clearances." Bo looked up again. "Actually, she's marked as a primary charter. Manifest shows Vera Knox, full override clearance." Ray's smile faded, but only slightly. "Even so, we're under federal protocol. We can't allow unverified individuals on board, especially not before final check-in. I'll need to see identification." Vera reached into her pocket and slowly pulled out a matte black access card. She held it out without a word. Ray took it, examined it for half a second, then turned it over as if searching for some flaw. "This doesn't show company affiliation." "Because I don't work for anyone," Vera replied calmly. "I fund them." Ray stiffened. Bo tried to diffuse the tension. "She's cleared, Ray. Seriously." Ignoring him, Ray turned back to Vera. "I'm going to have to ask you to step off momentarily until we sort this." Vera didn't move. "I'm not stepping anywhere." The air between them grew tighter. Ray tilted her head, her voice lowering. "I don't know who you think you are, walking in like you own the place." "I didn't say I did." "But you're acting like it." Vera's tone remained flat. "Or maybe you're just not used to seeing someone like me in this cabin." Ray scoffed lightly. "It's got nothing to do with that." "Doesn't it?" Another pause. The engines outside hadn't even started, but the pressure inside the cabin was already rising. Ray leaned forward, just slightly. "You need to exit, ma'am." "This isn't a debate." Vera remained still. Her eyes didn't waver. "You're making a mistake." "Noted." Then, as Ray reached for her arm, Vera stepped back. Not aggressively, but with a firmness that spoke volumes. "Don't touch me." "I'm following procedure," Ray insisted. "No," Vera said sharply. "You're following your assumptions." Bo moved closer now, clearly uneasy. "Ray, let it go. She's verified. HQ cleared her personally. It's literally stamped on the log." Ray wasn't listening. She was too far into the moment, too uncomfortable with being corrected in front of someone she didn't think belonged. Her pride spoke louder than logic. Vera quietly took a seat, In the center row, opened her backpack and pulled out a tablet. She didn't look up again. Didn't explain. Just tapped her screen and began reviewing something only she needed to understand. Ray lingered awkwardly near the aisle, frozen between protocol and ego. The jet remained grounded, but a storm was already brewing, and it wasn't in the sky. Ray didn't move for a long moment. Her feet stayed planted, but her confidence wavered. Something about the woman's stillness unnerved her. She wasn't flustered, wasn't defensive. She just existed with the kind of quiet authority Ray couldn't define and didn't trust. Beau returned to the galley, deliberately avoiding eye contact. He began rearranging unopened soda cans that were already organized, anything to keep his hands busy. His shoulders were tense, jaw locked. The mood inside the cabin had shifted, and it wasn't subtle. Captain Jace stepped out from the cockpit, tall with silver-streaked hair and a calm presence honed from decades in the air. He took one look at Ray, then at Vera, and understood something had gone wrong. "Everything all right here?" he asked, voice low but carrying weight. Ray straightened, smoothing her navy vest. "We had a boarding discrepancy. A woman arrived without proper presentation." "She's on the manifest," Beau said quickly without turning. "Top line, priority clearance." Jace raised an eyebrow at Ray. "Is that true?" She presented. "An access card, but it wasn't standard," Ray replied, carefully choosing her words. "And she refused to comply with protocol." "She didn't refuse," Beau muttered. "She was already cleared." Jace glanced at Vera, who still sat calmly, fingers gliding across her tablet screen. She looked up, expression unreadable. "Assume we're on schedule?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Jace responded immediately. "We'll begin final checks now." She gave a slight nod and returned to her work. Ray opened her mouth to object, but thought better of it. Instead, she turned sharply and walked back to the galley, the click of her heels a little louder than necessary. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken tension. Beau exhaled and disappeared into the back, pretending to check stock levels. For a third time, the engines finally began to hum, signaling the beginning of the pre-flight sequence. Jace returned to the cockpit without another word, but his glance toward Ray carried a clear message. "Stand down." Vera remained in her seat, legs crossed, face impassive. She didn't smirk, didn't gloat. There was no need. Her presence did. All the talking. Ray leaned against the rear counter, staring at her reflection in a steel cabinet. She didn't like how uncertain she looked. She didn't like being wrong, especially not in front of passengers or staff. She pulled out her tablet and reviewed the manifest again, this time slowly. There it was. Vera Knox, all caps, assigned. To the primary guest seat, marked with a clearance code she hadn't even seen before. Custom identifier. No secondary tags. No assistants. No brand associations. That wasn't normal, but it was official. Her stomach turned. 25 minutes into the flight, Vera hadn't moved from her position. She read, made occasional notes, and ignored every curious glance. She wasn't hiding, just choosing not to acknowledge the energy. Ray kept throwing toward her. Beau passed through the aisle quietly, avoiding unnecessary chatter. He refilled a water bottle, adjusted the snack tray, and made a mental note to check the temperature in the aft cabin. Anything to keep moving. From her jump seat, Ray stared straight ahead. Her mind raced. She wanted answers. She wanted a reason. Mostly, she wanted the feeling in her chest to go away. The slow, creeping awareness that she'd messed up. Badly. She stood abruptly and approached Vera's seat. "Can I offer you anything to drink?" she asked, voice low but strained. "Vera," looked up slowly. "No, I didn't mean to offend you earlier," Ray added, eyes searching for an opening. "I was just doing my job." "No," Vera replied coolly. "You were doing something else." Ray blinked. "I didn't recognize you. I thought—" "You thought I didn't belong," Vera interrupted. "You didn't stop to verify. You decided." Ray's throat tightened. "I was just—" "You were just uncomfortable," Vera said, "because I didn't come in wearing a power suit. Because I didn't match your idea of a passenger who gets to sit here." "I made a mistake," Ray said, barely audible. "No," Vera said. "You made an assumption. Then you acted on it. Then you escalated it." "I didn't mean harm." "You just didn't think I mattered," Vera replied, "until someone told you otherwise." Bo passed behind them silently, eyes focused. Ahead, pretending not to hear, Ray's posture shrank. "I truly apologize." Vera didn't respond. She turned back to her tablet, dismissed the conversation entirely, and began typing. The rejection wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. The lack of response hurt more than any outburst could have. Ray stood there, unsure whether to retreat or push further. She chose retreat. She returned to the galley, hands trembling slightly. She stood behind the service wall, her breath shallow. She thought about calling HQ. She thought about texting her supervisor. She thought about anything except the truth playing on repeat in her mind. She slapped the wrong woman. Her hands curled into fists, resting on the counter. She knew the consequences were coming. The mistake was no longer private. Bo saw it. The captain probably suspected. And Vera, well, she didn't need to say anything. Her silence was louder than anything Ray had ever heard. Minutes crawled past. The jet sailed smooth and level through clear skies, but Ray's world tilted harder than turbulence ever could. She watched Vera from behind the partition, trying to understand how someone could look so unbothered after what happened, because she wasn't shocked. She was prepared. Vera had seen it all before. The hum of the engines deepened as the jet crossed over Georgia, slicing through the afternoon sky. Everything inside the cabin appeared calm, polished and elegant, but under the surface, the tension still simmered. Ray remained in the galley, her eyes fixed on the stainless steel drawer she'd opened 5 times already. Her thoughts raced through contingency plans, imaginary explanations, and carefully worded apologies that might sound sincere enough to matter. None of them felt strong enough to fix what had already shattered. Bo quietly finished checking seatbelt, signs, then paused near Vera's aisle. She didn't acknowledge him, but he spoke anyway. "I'm sorry about what happened earlier." Her eyes stayed on the tablet. "You didn't cause it." "I know," he said. Still, she finally looked up. "Have you ever seen this happen before?" Bo hesitated. "Not like that. I've seen people questioned, ignored. But this?" Vera nodded once, as if she'd already known the answer. Bo lowered his voice. "If you need anything at all, I've got you," she offered a faint smile. "You have integrity. That's enough." He moved on, his face tight with guilt he hadn't earned. Back near the cockpit, Captain Jace glanced over his shoulder. His gut told him something had gone sideways, and not just a misunderstanding. He tapped the intercom, then stood and opened the door to the cabin. Vera looked up as he approached. "Ms. Knox," he said gently, "could I speak with you for a moment?" She closed the tablet and stood. "Certainly." He led her toward the conference cabin at the rear, a private room with soundproof walls and tinted windows. As they stepped inside, Bo followed and quietly closed the door behind them. Jace remained standing. I just got confirmation from our operations team. Your clearance level is the highest we've ever processed on a civilian manifest. Vera sat down at the table. I'm not surprised. He rubbed the back of his neck. They also confirmed something else. You're not just a client. She looked directly at him. No, I'm not. You're the new chair of Norwin Aviation Group. Correct. Acquired controlling interest last quarter. This aircraft is registered to my personal holding company. Jace exhaled. That's a substantial change. Not a secret either, Vera added. The press release went out 3 weeks ago. He nodded slowly. And what happened earlier? It wasn't just inappropriate. It was unacceptable. I know. Jace's voice softened. We owe you a formal apology, and disciplinary action is already being drafted. She leaned forward, unlocking her folder. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to implement solutions. He remained quiet as she spread out a document across the table. It was crisp, neatly bound, with color-coded sections and executive summaries on every page. This is a new operational directive, she said. Company-wide sensitivity retraining, evaluation rubrics, hiring pipeline audits, and a restructuring of guest-facing roles across all subsidiaries. Jace looked at the title on the cover. Alta Standard, Revised Equity Compliance Protocol, 2025. I had planned to introduce this in Q3, she said. Today changed that timeline. He read the opening paragraph and closed the file gently. It's overdue. She tapped her pen against the edge of the folder. We don't fix culture by issuing PR statements. We fix it by changing what people are allowed to assume. Jace straightened. You'll have my full support. I know, she replied. That's why you're still in this cockpit. He offered a faint smile. She didn't return it. When they stepped back into the main cabin, Vera's presence sent a ripple through the silence. Ray glanced up from her seat near the galley, sensing the meeting had not gone her way. Vera paused beside her. I assume you're wondering what happens next, Ray stood. Yes, ma'am. You'll be suspended from active duty pending review. Reassignment is not guaranteed. Ray swallowed hard. Understood. But, Vera continued, there is an option. Ray looked confused. There is? If you complete the full ALTA retraining program, submit a written acknowledgement of the incident, and commit to the new accountability policy, you may be reconsidered for service. Ray's voice trembled. You'd give me another chance? I don't give anything, Vera replied. You'll have to earn it. Ray nodded, eyes cast downward. Vera turned away, returning to her seat with quiet precision. She sat, adjusted the tray table, and opened the folder once more. This wasn't a lecture. It was structure. Ray lowered herself into the jump seat. Her hands rested on her knees, palms flat, fingertips trembling. The engines continued to hum. The cabin remained spotless. But something real had just entered that space. Consequence. And no one could ignore it. The skyline of New York came into view as the jet began its final descent. The clouds parted slowly, revealing a quiet city wrapped in late afternoon light. Inside the cabin, no one spoke. Every sound, the soft whir of air vents, the muted chime of the seatbelt sign, felt louder than usual. Vera glanced out the window, eyes still, expression calm. Her folder was closed, hands resting lightly over it. She hadn't said another word since addressing Ray. She didn't need to. Her presence carried more weight than any punishment. Ray sat near the galley, spine straight, shoulders tense. Her hands were folded too tightly in her lap, nails pressing into skin she hadn't noticed until they stung. She stole another glance, toward Vera, and immediately regretted it. The woman looked like she belonged in that seat, not because of money, but because she refused to shrink. Captain Jace's voice came over the intercom, composed as always. "We're approaching Manhattan. Executive. Weather is clear. Touchdown in 12 minutes. Crew, please prepare for landing." Bo began moving through the cabin, checking overhead compartments, securing items, avoiding eye contact. His usual warmth had cooled into something distant, professional. He was protecting his energy, and Ray could feel it. Vera remained in her seat, buckled in, eyes forward. She tapped once on her tablet, but made no further movements. As the wheels touched down, the plane rolled smoothly along the private runway. The moment it came to a full stop, the weight in everyone's chest grew heavier. On the tarmac, 2 black SUVs waited beside the mobile stairs. Men in plain suits stood nearby, surveying the surroundings without urgency. They weren't reacting. They were expecting. Bo opened the cabin door. The rush of warm wind filled the space briefly before settling. Vera stood, stretched her arms. Once, then retrieved her backpack from the overhead. Ray rose automatically, unsure what she intended to do. Speak again? Apologize again? Disappear? She stood there, frozen between impulse and regret. Vera walked toward the exit slowly, not in a showy way, but like someone who knew she didn't need to announce her importance. Just before stepping out, she paused and turned slightly toward Ray. "You have a voice," she said quietly, "but you used it to make someone small. Next time, use it to make space." Ray didn't answer. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Vera turned back, descended the stairs, and entered the SUV without another glance. The door shut. The vehicle drove off without sound, like a decision had been made long before anyone else realized. Back inside, Bo approached Ray, arms crossed. His tone was even. "You all right?" She blinked. "I don't know." "It's not about how you feel now," he said. "It's about what you do next." She nodded faintly, gripping the edge of the galley counter like it could hold her together. The plane emptied in silence. No other passengers had spoken to her the entire flight. She hadn't just embarrassed herself, she'd stained the uniform she once wore with pride. 2 days later, Ray sat in a quiet room inside Norwin Aviation headquarters. She wore a simple blouse, no makeup, no badge. Before her was a screen, paused on the opening frame of a training module. She took a breath and pressed play. Vera appeared on screen, seated in a modern office, dressed in understated elegance. Her voice was calm, precise. "If you're watching this, you've made a mistake," she said. "But mistakes alone don't define you. What you choose after does." Ray leaned in slightly. The words didn't sound rehearsed. They sounded lived. "You were trusted to make people feel safe," Vera continued. "Not just comfortable, but seen, respected. If your first reaction is to judge before asking, you've already failed that trust." The video faded to a montage of real scenarios. A pilot questioned by airport staff outside his own aircraft. A disabled woman spoken over by gate agents. A teenager asked to switch seats because someone didn't want to sit next to her. None of it felt distant. It all felt familiar now. Ray reached for her pen and began taking notes, not because anyone asked her to, but because she finally understood what she had missed. Across the country, on a different runway in Seattle, a black woman stepped onto a private jet wearing sneakers, sweatpants, and a hoodie with a university logo. She carried nothing but a laptop bag and a confident stride. The attendant greeted her with a smile. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Elson. Would you prefer sparkling or still?" There was no second glance, No raised eyebrows. Only professionalism. The world hadn't transformed overnight, but a shift had begun. In small choices, in quiet corrections, in people learning to pause before reacting. Change didn't need to be loud. Sometimes it just needed someone willing to walk in, sit down, and show everyone exactly where the power had always been.